Rejoice because it's February, and in February we build heroes. But we can also build villains if we want. It's HF Feb, and we're going to be talking about exactly that. Mocks within the Hero Factory universe, whether they're heroes, whether they're villains, or anything in between. It's totally up to you. So look, let's just dive straight in. Let's get some inspiration for some cool Hero Factory characters if you want to join in on the fun during the month of February and build some heroes or build some villains. Let's begin with a mock by IGU. This is Thorax. A revamp of Thorax, more specifically. Of course, Thorax was a official Hero Factory villain character, and one of the coolest ones with the awesome color scheme of that medium azure, the orange and the black. I remember being really excited when that set was coming out because those colors were just really exciting. And the overall sort of look of the character was so different. The fact that he was a lot less humanoid and a lot more kind of bug-like and stuff, he was cool. I think one issue with the original set was the fact that he couldn't really stand up inherently. Obviously the way it was designed, he kind of needed a stand to hold him up, and the set didn't come with one. But what's nice about this version here is that it has elements of the original, the rough sort of same leg design there, but obviously beefed up in some fashion. But we can see those transclear stands on the back there that act as almost kind of like a high heel of sorts, but a little sort of stand in some fashion that helps support the mock, but still maintain that original look. And that's very nicely done. I also enjoy the bug butt, or the Thorax, whatever you want to call it, where we can see almost sort of bee stripes on the back there. That's very clever. Great way of doing that. And, the original Thorax had, he had a tail, and he had that quasar spike for the actual sort of stinger bit, which I always thought was a really nice part use there. But, yeah, it was kind of lackluster, I suppose. So it's good to see a more sort of atomically correct bug butt that can just, elevate the mock and take it to a new level and take some of the more average qualities of the set and make them even cooler. Some other stuff on this that I enjoy is the kind of antenna that are going on the head. I like the fact that they're angled down there. I guess you would expect them to be angled up. I guess that's kind of what would happen with a typical animal. But I think the way that they're angled down, it almost reminds me of anime hair to a degree. So it kind of makes them look a little bit more edgy and a little bit more villainous in that sense. So I think that's a great inclusion. And, of course, it is a villain. What sort of minute details like that can you include to help it look, more obviously villain-like? I think it's clever how that's been done, and just in general, a lot more sort of menacing silhouette. They look a bit more sort of like beefy and bulky. It's good to see multiple sets of arms on there. So it's just a really well done revamp that takes all the beautiful qualities of the original set but elevates it to a new level. It's gorgeous to see. Great to see revamps of some of the awesome characters within the world of Hero Factory. Moving over to a brilliant little mock here by Lego David 1, and this is Exo Hero Titan suit. So immediately what grabbed me about this is the fact that this is very obviously inspired by the Exo Toa from Bionicle, and I love the idea of taking concepts or ideas from the Bionicle universe, from the Bionicle sets, and translating it to Hero Factory. I guess you could do sort of different takes of the Rahi sets. There's a plethora of different things you could do with Bionicle because there's so many years of it that you can draw inspiration from. So very clever to see that done here in a Hero Factory context. Immediately, one of my favorite things is we can see how the suit would kind of move and pose. We can look at, I guess this is Stormer, it looks enough like him, Stormer inside the suit there, and when you take a look at his hands, we can see that he's got these little grabby handles that attach to the actual, arms and hands of the, exosuit here. And I think that's a clever detail because sure, you could have just had the hands just sort of little like levers or just sort of resting by his side or whatever. But it's nice to see that that's how it's physically attached. And when he moves his arm, the larger arm moves as well. So you get a sense of how he would fight with this suit, how he would move with this suit, all that sort of stuff. I think it's always a nice inclusion when you can have your mock really illustrate how it would move and breathe and interact with the world, and I think something like that's a good way of illustrating that for sure. Another nice detail is that the Exo Toa here, I just called it an Exo Toa, I didn't mean to, exosuit, you know what it is. It's almost entirely silver, and yeah, I think an extra bit of color might have worked for sure, but there seems something nice about that. It kind of reminds me of the early Iron Man suits that were pretty heavily silver as well, in the MCU rather, and the fact that it is primarily silver does give me that kind of prototype vibe, and it could be a really fun series of mocks to build the sort of progression of this exosuit as it gets upgraded and improved. Maybe this is version 1 or Mark 1, whatever you want to refer to it as. And as it improves, the colors change, more weapons get added, how the hero controls it changes. Maybe as they change it, like, hey, we don't actually want a hero inside anymore. It's going to be just a robot that is just this big enhanced sentry thing. I don't know. It could be a unique series of mocks that you could build yourself. But still, I think the silver, or primarily silver color scheme here works well, especially because the hero on the inside can be all those sort of brighter, fun colors, and that does contrast with the armor itself, so it works. But seeing the Borak Kull helmet shield thing, whatever that's called, with that little bit of pop of black in there, and that interesting pattern there too, that is an additional added bonus of color there that works well. Next up, Bluesmith has built Core Hunter. I enjoyed this photo here. It's a little bit more graphic, I suppose you could say, but it's nice to see Core Hunter hunting cores and beating up heroes. Like, that's what the villains do, so hey, it makes sense, and it's cool to see that being captured here. It's nice. I also see this little tiny detail here on the gun. It's a piece that I don't really know what it's called, but I remember it from this Exoforce set. You can see it on one of the guns there too. It's a nice way of having that exact same kind of blaster design, but not having it have the Zamisphere, which is, I think, fitting. I mean, yes, the Zamisphere is for fun, but it's more of a play feature, and you may not want that on your mock, especially because maybe when you're moving it around and stuff, the Zamisphere just falls out and it's a pain. So just putting that piece on there instead, I think, is it's one piece, but it totally changes the way that it looks and improves it in some fashion, I think. So a lovely little inclusion there. And also just seeing a more bulked out, almost sort of Titan version of Core Hunter is a happy surprise. It's good. Having this bulkier look certainly seems a lot more menacing and sinister and fitting of that villain title, Also, it's nice to see some system on the knees there, kind of knee pads in some regard. Very nicely done. BHL Studios has built Akari Senshi next, and I enjoy this. It's cool to see a samurai look for a Hero Factory character. It reminds me of different images that floated around, and people have built mocks of it since, of cowboy Hero Factory characters. Hero Factory sets were, going underground, going underwater and stuff like that. And sure, having a samurai look isn't, location based, like the differences of each wave of Hero Factory sets was. But still, what would the Hero Factory sets look like in a cyberpunk setting? I can say that word, I promise. Or a samurai aesthetic like this. There's a lot of different genres that I think blend nicely enough with Hero Factory characters, so it's cool to see in that regard. It's also cool to see that ogre mask being used on this mock, because I always thought it did have a pretty decent samurai look to it. We can see, of course, it's dark red. That could be a bootleg piece, because often you can find bootleg pieces that have typical Lego pieces, but they come in colors that they didn't exist in, which is always a little bit exciting. Or they've most likely painted it here, which I would say is what's happened here. But either way, nice to see that mask being used because it perfectly fits this aesthetic. We can also see some of those sort of, I guess, tank tread pieces on the upper legs there, which match more of the samurai waistcoat aesthetic that you often see on samurai armor. A more stripped back way of doing that. I guess it would maybe be a little bit more detailed on a typical samurai, but it works here, and I guess it's a bit more of an homage to that versus being a direct copy in that sense, but I like how it looks anyway. And it's a good part use for those pieces, because if you're like me and you bought even just one or two of the sets that come with those pieces, you probably have heaps of them, because you tended to get a lot of them to actually do that justice. So if you've got a lot of them, it's good to put them to use like this. It's good to see. Also nice to see dark red on a Hero Factory character, because normally we just saw red with Furno. So nice to see some of those different shades there too. Very nicely done. Let's move over to a mock by Cyanova32, and this is Hive Queen. So another villain-esque character for Hero Factory, and I enjoy it. Seeing the purple, a little bit of lime thrown in there too, and the trans neon green is a beautiful color scheme. It certainly fits to this more bug-like aesthetic for this character. I don't know why specifically. I don't know what in my head is saying purple, lime, and trans neon green works perfectly for bug-like characters, but hey, it does, so that's fantastic. I do also enjoy seeing this more centipede-like leg design here. Because, you know, Bionicle, you probably still could have done a leg design like that for any of the villain characters, but I feel like there's something nice about Hero Factory that's so much more like zany and wild and weird and wonderful. So seeing a non-humanoid leg design like this is so fitting, especially for the villain characters. You know, I think if a Hero Factory character, or well, no, it's still Hero Factory technically, if the good guys had legs like this, it might not quite work because they're more sort of that robot, human-like aesthetic in that sense. So great to see that for a Hero Factory character. It's just perfect for the world. I also enjoyed this head design here with that visor and kind of combining it with that larger spike in purple up the back there. There's this wonderful energy to the head design, especially with the hairs flowing back in the breeze there. It's just cool to see. I also enjoy the detail of the printed donut tile. You can see it kind of where the ear is, I suppose, on the head design. That to me looks like one of the Tron printed weapon tile pieces that you got in the Tron Lego set that they made, and I love that detail. You know, this is a digitally rendered mock here, but you could, you know, still achieve that with real pieces there, and I just love seeing printed tiles and things on Bionicle mocks or even system mocks, because they're often those nice little finishing touches that really just elevate it to another level. So that's a nice inclusion there for sure. Overall, a really nicely done villain character for HF Feb. Well done. Let's move over now to the final mock. This is a beauty. It's by Brick Brickelson, and this is Akiyama Makoro. So I'm going to read the description here on one of the photos on Flickr, because I think it really informs this mock, and it's a lot of fun. It says, once Akiyama Makiro was known as the oldest hero in the galaxy. Before the creating of Hero Factory, he was the only wall of pure steel justice between the society of robots and the growing danger of the criminals. At least, that's what this old, odd salesman at the official Makahiro City comic book shop told us. But it is you who decides which is real and which is just myth. That's fun. That's so cool. I love the idea of the myth within the myth of Hero Factory. And like I said before, Hero Factory is so wild, zany, and wonderful. What would the comic books of Hero Factory be like? Which they themselves would be very zany and wonderful, because that's the medium of comic books. So I love that. I think that's fun. And I think that's been brilliantly translated here on this character. I mean, just this image alone, the way he's posed with the little finger guns, his weird, crazy mustache, and the raised eyebrow there. He looks like the most just over-the-top, fantastic character who's super full of himself, super fun and funny, gets all the girls. You know, he's such a stereotype of your action hero character, and I think that's been brilliantly distilled here into this wonderful Hero Factory mock. You know, the bananas for the mustache is great. The way that the eyebrow has that curve to it, just by sort of slightly rotating that piece, is wonderful. And then I also enjoy this chest design here with this red cage around it. I don't really know how you describe that, but there's something very retro about that. That's wonderful. Now, also with some of the other images on Flickr, I'll check the links in the description. There's more descriptions for each of those there, which you can check out. But the idea is this is him on multiple different adventures that he's been on. So right off the bat, lovely editing across these. They look wonderful. And it's great to see. How many times can I say wonderful about this mock? I don't know. Wait and see. But it's great to see him on different adventures. I think it really adds to the story behind this character. And the way that they've been edited also just enhances the way that the mock looks too, which is also very good. I mean, it's insane how much the way that photos are edited and like the posing of the mock, I mean, the one I said before with the like finger guns and stuff, how much does that distill who the character is? If you had him just sort of standing with his arms by his side, it'd be boring. It wouldn't be cool. But you know, seeing him doing these, you know, wonderfully over-the-top poses, and looking like an action figure or looking like a movie star on a poster or something like that is the ideal way of showcasing this character here. So wonderful thought that's been put into the photography, which plays such a big role in showcasing the characters and highlighting the best parts of the build. there's just a lot that I love about this. It's really, really well done. I love his ray gun as well. Lovely design there, and great that it's purple as well. I think that's also a wonderfully bright and over-the-top color that perfectly fits the vibe of this character. So all in all, a brilliant, brilliant take on a hero here for HF Feb. Well done. That's it for this episode of HF Feb Bionicle Inspiration Series, Hero Factory, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of long, complicated titles for this show, but that's what this is. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got a little bit inspired, and hopefully you can build something for HF Feb. There's still a lot of time left, so you got time if you want to do so, but hey, even if you build HF Feb mocks in March, that's okay too. Check the links in the description to see more of the mocks that we talked about today. See what else these builders have done. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. There's also links in the description to the submission email if you want to submit your own Hero Factory mocks for the next episode of HF Feb coverage. Otherwise, also check the links in the description to see some of the other stuff that I've got going on. I'll probably be posting my Hero Factory mock very soon. It's all done. I'm just photographing it now, so stay tuned. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Happy building, and bye for now.